basically hate men and are always talking about toxic masculinity, and it's a Democrat reality. And really, the truth is, there are very few efforts that are made, I would say more broadly in politics, right and left, but definitely on the right, to speak to men who are in a difficult position right now. Female earnings relative to men, female college graduation relative to men. Women have made all this tremendous progress. And now we're in this society where, very few men tend to have a lot of options when it comes to mates, and a lot of guys, they're not going to start the next billion-dollar company, and they're wondering, what's in it for me? And then when they're told, oh yeah, by the way, we're putting immigrants up in 4-star hotels in New York City who just got here yesterday. Sorry that you can't pay your bills.
Buck,
no, but I'm just speaking to what the reality is.
I'm so sorry that men have had to now endure the same inequities that women have. I mean, the idea that there is, but think about this, what you're saying is...
I love it so much when they tell on themselves. This is CNN legal analyst Laura Coates, who happened to be a very loudmouth, obnoxious woman who, ironically enough, got mad at Buck Sexton for over-speaking, talking over people in this. Meanwhile, what is she doing right here? But I do love it when they tell on themselves, because we have Democrats, modern day Democrats, the mainstream platform for them is equity. Equity. That is part of the mainstream platform. Their nominee, who won no votes, speaks about equity. Okay.
Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same place.
And equity, we know, means equal outcome, not equal opportunity. And we have long said, people on the right, sane people, have long said that in order to get equal outcomes, which is impossible anyways, but in order to attempt to get equal outcomes, it's not you lift everyone up. Realistically, practically speaking, that's not actually what happens. What you do is you cut down people. You cut down the people, the groups that you feel have been at the top for too long. Usually men, usually white people, specifically usually white men, straight white men. You have to cut them down. You have to hold them back so that everyone ends up the same and you get your equal outcomes. Never mind the fact that, of course, equal outcomes are impossible. We do not live in utopia. We do not live in heaven on earth. It doesn't mean that we should not strive for everyone's conditions to be better. It doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to do and be good on this earth and this life. But we live in a fallen world. We live in a sinful world. Evil exists. I assume even leftists would agree with that. And let's say that magically we could wave a wand and we could have every single baby born in the same house, in the same income bracket, in the same region of the US, to the same family, the same parents. Even still, you would have disparate outcomes because you have genes. You have different people. No two people are the same. For example, someone grows up in an alcoholic home. They have an alcoholic parent. Sometimes that results in the adult child of the alcoholic never having a drink, completely shunning it because they know firsthand the pain, the illness, the devastation that it can cause. And then other times, probably more often, it results in that child growing up to become an alcoholic, him or herself, because of that genetic predisposition. But my point is that you can have the same circumstance, whether it be positive or negative, and two different people are going to do or not do different things with it. We cannot have equal outcomes. It is impossible. But in order to even try to get there, you have to cut down certain people. You have to cut down certain groups. You have to hold back progress. And that is exactly what Laura Coates admits in this, because she says sarcastically, oh, I'm sorry if men might have to deal with some of the iniquities that women have had to deal with. Meanwhile, women have had to deal with almost none of these iniquities, okay? We're not talking about anything really that women have had to deal with, but we are talking about making men, specifically white men, feel othered so that other people can get a leg up, so that other people can make progress. You have to hold yourself back. You have to be left behind so that some other groups can now succeed. Some other groups can have their day in the sun. You had your chance. Now we need other groups to have their chance. Meanwhile, an individual white man did not necessarily have his chance. It does not matter if people who looked like me were in power, have been in power. That has no bearing on my life, okay? If I feel as an individual, man or woman, no matter the skin color, that I don't have a chance, that I haven't had a chance, that's what matters to me. That's what matters to my family. It doesn't have a bearing on my life that people who may or may not have looked like me did something bad or succeeded or have held the reins of power for too long. That doesn't help the individual white man. That doesn't help him in his daily life with his family when he's just trying to survive and thrive. What is this stuff about, oh, you've had your chance? You haven't had your chance. We're not a monolith. We're not a monolith. But she comes right out and admits that the goal, or at the very least, an acceptable consequence for Democrats of their progress, the goal, or at the very least, an acceptable, tolerable consequence is for white men to feel left behind. Because then they will know what it's like to be a woman, specifically a black or brown woman. Then they'll know what they've put other people through. Then they'll know. She admits it right there that that is what Democrats want, or at the very least are fine with. It's not about lifting up everyone. It is about cutting down certain people so that other people can have their day in the sun. And it is never going to work. And you want to know why it's not going to work? It's not going to work because most Americans see through this. Most Americans see through this. The majority of poor people in America are white, which really isn't all that shocking because the majority of America is white. For better or worse, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying we are still a majority white country. So sure, you can sit here and say the majority of the top earners are white. The majority of the poor, struggling people are also white. It makes sense for white people to be the majority of many things. Meanwhile, Asians out-earn white Americans in this country. So that obliterates this whole thing about white privilege regardless. But again, the majority of poor people in this country are white. And we see through this kind of stuff. And I know this firsthand because the thing that planted the seed of my eventual awakening, my eventual red pilling, my eventual walking away from the Democrat Party, the very thing that planted the seed that took years to get to fruition, but it planted the seed, was this rhetoric around race. Because I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and I remember that it was around 2017, 2017, that I first started hearing white privilege and this intense, obsessive focus on race. I don't remember it before then. In my memory, it was like 2017, and almost overnight it was everywhere. And even though I was so liberal, even though I was so Democrat, immediately this rhetoric, this decentering yourself as a white person, this obsession with white privilege didn't sit right with me because it doesn't match my experience. It doesn't match what I've seen my family go through. I mean, if you knew some of the things that my parents have gone through, you'd probably be shocked. And so the only way that you buy this as a white person is if you are wealthy, if you are born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and you erroneously equate your perhaps cushier lifestyle, your easier life, with your white skin, as opposed to your wealth. The only white people who are going to buy this are wealthy people who were born in a bubble, born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And so they do have some guilt, and they erroneously attribute it to the color of their skin. That's the only white people who are going to buy this. Everybody else who hears this kind of stuff, specifically white men, obviously, it's going to set off the alarm bells in their head. It cuts right through the indoctrination. It cuts right through the brainwashing, because that is what happened to me. And again, I didn't walk away from the Democrat Party immediately. It took, in fact, 2 or 3 years for that to happen. It took the response to COVID, especially compared to the response to BLM. And every time I brought up how I had issues with the response to COVID and how it didn't make sense because we were able to go out and protest, I was called racist. So it was as if everything had kind of come, it was like a callback to, okay, this obsession with race, this idea that I can't struggle as a white woman, that my struggles aren't real or they aren't as bad because I have white skin, which kind of buffers me in a way. And that's when I eventually walked away, was 2020. But this set the stage, because this had been going on for far too long, and it's only gotten worse since 2016 or 2017, whenever it first came in the cultural zeitgeist. It's only gotten worse. It's only gotten more radical. They're coming out and admitting that they hate you. There is no room in the modern day Democrat Party for white men. There is no room in the modern day Democrat Party for men, period. There is no room in the modern day Democrat Party for white women. There is no room in the modern day Democrat Party for Christians. They hate you. They want to hold you back if they believe that you are part of some oppressive group in their mind. And when it suits them, they will turn on you. Doesn't matter if you're a black man, they'll turn on you. Doesn't matter if you're a white woman, they'll turn on you. When it suits them, they will turn on you. Walk away from the Democrat Party. Walk away from this hatred.